I love time lapses, they're just so cool. There's an X factor about them that makes them interesting. And that was actually the first one I ever did with a sort of drawing time lapse. Unlike that carefully filmed and edited time lapse though, here now are some trip reports filmed freshly after my first few 5-MeO DMT experiences. And out of the first 8 experiences I had, 5 of them made the cut here today. And that is because I didn't film the first one, which I sort of wish I did, because it was quite strong, yet clear. There was a lot of clarity involved when compared to other psychedelics. And really it was a very crisp experience, much like this freshly ironed shirt really. But I have no footage to share of that. Another trip, I didn't film it because I just had nothing to share at the time. And a third trip report I did film, but I thought it was a bit rambly. It wasn't too interesting to share to you guys. But I hope you enjoy the 5 that did make it to this video today, and I hope you find it interesting in some form or another. Enjoy! And I want to start by saying that after this experience, I kind of 100% agree that 5-MeO DMT is the way to go, definitely, if you want to get any sort of real big spiritual results as like a normal person. Maybe if you're spiritually gifted, I'm sure you can accomplish anything you want. If you go sit in a cave long enough or do some really intense sadhana. But for like normal people living in the world, wow, I think 5-MeO DMT, I must admit, it's totally the way to go. And yeah, I just took 16 milligrams, which is not even that much. And the experience was, I can understand what people mean. I did not have a complete breakthrough, but the body load was so intense. And I'm lucky to have the time to be meditating a lot lately. And I think that really paid off. After some time, this is when the rubber hits the road. Your body sort of realizes, like, this is the real deal, man. This isn't a joke. This isn't theorizing. All your little issues about life go out the window. My heart was really beating fast. And I guess fear didn't really come up too much, but I could see definitely how it can sneak in there. Yeah, this real sense of that your life is just going to be gone. A lot of questions, I think. The mind can't grasp at all what's going on, and definitely it's not like I just realized all the secrets of the universe. But I think that was actually a good dose for spiritual work, because letting go of the mind, trying to understand things, is really where the spiritual work happens, because the mind totally blows up. It's no thoughts at all. And it was interesting, really, as the experience was done, I was kept meditating. Yeah, I could feel like twitches in my face. Some real deep reprogramming is happening, where you're shifting out of the mind, which is sort of focused in the head. I was kind of having interesting experiences even before I took the 5-MeO, where a lot of thinking is actually involved, with slight muscle twitches in the nose and the ears, behind in the sinuses, but all of that it's all going to be a giant change once you reach these levels of spirituality, or these peak experiences. And yeah, I guess this is going to be a big ramble, like I warned at the start, because my mind is definitely not very concise at the moment. And I guess I should finish. I feel like my body is kind of just recognizing that there's not too much more to say, except, wow, I'm very excited about where this is going to go. And yeah, I think the biggest tip I can give you, if you're ever in this situation where you really realize, like, whoa, this is it, something big is just on the other side, that's what I luckily could grasp towards, is sort of even do this sort of expression. You are just opening up completely, all the way up your spine, all the way up your central axis, opening up completely to love and to God. Even if you're not a spiritual person, I mean a religious person, this this word God might come up. It might come up because yeah, it's powerful. And there's this real sense that there is something huge on the other side, and it can be, yeah, the mind has no idea what's going on, because what was really confusing me is the sense of union, where you dissolve, and I was sort of getting glimpses of that. We are literally all one, but that really is disorientating. And yeah, especially when you think of particular people, what does that really mean to be one? Yeah, anyway, I'll keep you updated as I go on. I might just take a break for a few days, let this all settle in. I think the key is, which is very counterintuitive for someone like me, is to not overthink it at all. I've been lucky enough to meditate, so I'll just keep meditating, but it would be best not to overthink this experience. I've expressed myself now, and I might express myself to a few close friends. And what I really want to express to them is that if they really want spiritual results, if they really want to know the secrets of the universe, then 5-MeO DMT is the way to go. It's just epic. There's nothing else compares. I've done a lot of meditating, and I think I will still stand with what I have always believed, is that this needs to be incorporated with a lot of sober meditation. And what I mean by that is a lot of sober meditation, and not just taking this, because you might go insane if you're not grounded. And sober meditation definitely helps you stay grounded. And yeah, I think that's about it. I will try not to overthink this. Sort of lingering here, I don't know why, so I'll just say goodbye. If you have any questions, comment below. I'd love to talk about it, and I'll see you in the next video. Yesterday I took my first 19 milligram dose of 5-MeO DMT, which was very different from my previous highest dose of 16 milligrams. And today I'm just plainly going to talk about that experience. And the first thing to mention is that what happened surprisingly reminded me of a Zen practice, which is simply to stare at a dot on the wall and really focus on it, and then drop all thoughts, all desires, all attachment. It sounds so simple, and when you're doing it at a Zen center, the full promise of where this technique can take you isn't very obvious, but on this trip I think I really got in touch with what those monks are doing. So visually, what was happening is I was lying on my bed, and there happened to be a dot on the ceiling, and for whatever reason I didn't really feel like closing my eyes this time. I felt like kept keeping my eyes open, and as I was staring at this dot, you know, sort of a trance state came over me. And what happened was there becomes this intense focus where the mind is no longer distracted. Everything else drops away, everything else. And all you see is this dot, and you're super focused on it. And it's almost like this focus is piercing, like a spear. When for me, the experience was like digging a hole through the very center of reality. And out the other side comes, out the other side you perceive the reality behind the reality, the space behind the space, which is extremely hard to talk about. But it wasn't just this. As I was focusing on the dot and noticing that there's a space on the other side of this pinprick hole, I also noticed that this was sort of a form of Shambhavi, where you focus with the eyes, and that was connecting an axis in the body. And at the base of the body, there is another hole like this, where the Kundalini energy traditionally or does come from. And I feel like I didn't get anywhere near this, but that's sort of the holy grail of enlightenment, is not just to blow up in your head, but to connect this Kundalini center to the center you can see through there. And that is sort of the merging of Shakti and Shiva. And I sort of intuitively presume that that's going to meet at the heart and manifest in immense levels of love. And apart from this visual aspect, also thoughts completely dropped away as I allowed them to drop away. And this high-pitched sound was extremely obvious and to be honest, very alien. It wasn't like a human talking, it wasn't like any talking, it was like static. Maybe here I'll give a visual representation now of what I saw. I'll do my best in my amateur video editing skills to portray that. And also the sound. And the sound coming over me was very relevant because usually the mind is always active, even in subtle ways. Maybe not having a full-on thought or a full-on flow, but there's still something going on. And this focusing on the sound meant everything dropped away. And that was kind of the unnerving aspect of the trip. It wasn't just opening up to love, it was opening up to something strange. And it was a very staticky type of sound. It wasn't like there was all this cosmic information encoded in it, as far as I could tell. But there was a lot of... it was just extremely, from a first-person point of view, extremely powerful and dramatic. Because I guess everything you're attached to drops away. And that's really what I want to mention as well. Is that at this dose, or let's say going back to the 16 milligram dose, which I did before, that was a lot more smoother, and I felt like I was healing my daily issues, my personal problems. Feel that love was coming in, and I was working on like daily normal human issues. And that was my intention as well for this 19 milligram dose, but that wasn't really possible because you have to let go. That's like something you learn in meditation. If an experience is presenting itself, you have to let go and accept that experience, not try and force it in a particular direction. And in this case, 19 milligrams, you are not focusing on daily issues or relationship issues or work issues or money issues. It's something incredibly different, incredibly energetic. So yeah, I think that's worth mentioning, that if you want to work on personal issues, that's great on a psychedelic. But if you're doing it on 5-MeO DMT, don't take the dosages up too high. And yeah, at the end of the experience, I had a lot more respect for Zen Buddhism, the Zen practices, Zazen, and what those guys are actually doing. Because I think at the moment, you can get into that state of consciousness sober. It's just that you're not going to go to work, come back home, and sit down for an hour, meditate, and get to these states. It's possible, but I don't think it's realistic for like the average person. But if you really commit like these monks are doing, and somehow you can break into these states just by staring at a hole, staring at a speck on the wall day after day, and just drop everything humanly that you're attached to, then, well, that's a big feat, and I really respect that. Also, that was the majority of my trip, and yeah, a lot of energy shifted, things that you can't really describe accurately, but I'm just describing one aspect of the trip. But also, there is sort of this peak, and then eventually you notice, okay, I'm sobering up. And as I was sobering up, I revisited some of the 8 spiritual breaths. I'll link that in the description below. It's an affirmation practice. And yeah, I think why it occurred to me to do this was by staring at the speck in the wall. It was very powerful, but very head-centered. But I was sort of feeling a little bit, I want to use the right words, lacking of energy. The state of consciousness with the high frequency white noise, I was sort of accepting everything exactly as it is. Everything, including all my... all the things I'm generally worried about in life. But then at the same time, I felt like, it was more of a question, should we forsake the things that we know intuitively are valuable? So that's things like youth, things like beauty, things like having energy, things like having drive and motivation and wanting to help others, service. All these things seem intuitively very good, but at this stage, everything was being accepted and loved. Loved might be not in the traditional way, but everything was being accepted, including, for instance, one thing I was noticing on my wrist size, which I guess is a bit, it could be thicker, I guess. Sometimes in life, if you punch or something, you notice it's a bit fragile, your wrists. And some men, like the Maoris, they have like chunks for wrists. And this isn't like a big deal, but it's a subtle energy body thing. So that was one aspect of me that had a lot of acceptance, just like literally accepting the delicacy of your human body. But at the same time, then I wanted, and I was questioning, should we have this drive in life? And the 8 spiritual breaths in particular, it's a Kundalini practice, so it brings up this energy and it's extremely powerful. I've done it many times, sober and on psychedelics, I've tried it. But in this particular case, it was wow. It was also really astounding. And like I said, this was on the come down. But as I did one of the affirmations, it's divided into sections. I went into a total trance that I allowed to come over me. And it's really hard to describe, but it's like a whole different energy comes into the body. And this is a healing practice, a Kriya practice. I really want to describe it accurately, but I don't think I really can. Sort of muscles in the face start to twitch. You enter an internal space. Your body goes into a certain position. Huge energy is flowing. It felt like a lot of purification was happening. Tons of it. But then it sort of ended by presenting to me this energy, this shetram, I think as the Indians call it, maybe even a guru energy that this practice is. It sort of left me with the knowledge that doing this practice is very valuable, but it's not going to do everything for me. It's not like by just doing this practice you're going to become enlightened. You need to live your own life, have your own journey. And that was very insightful for me, and very abstract. But what I want to get across is that this 8 spiritual breaths practice is insanely powerful for transformation. And I think it's really good not only to bring energy in your life, but also to keep you moving in a good direction, because of psychedelics, I think that's very important, to stay grounded, to stay integrative, and to have good direction in life so that you don't become so accepting and loving of everything that you become a person living on the streets. Technically, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're living on the streets and perfectly happy and joyful, that's fine. But I think some intuitive, deeper knowing says that it's better to become enlightened and be in a life of service to others and to be rich in more ways than the financial sense. And that's about it. It was very, very interesting, very, very powerful. I'm not going to talk about every trip I do. I've already done some in the meantime that I haven't talked about. But this was really interesting to me, and I thought that I could sort of convey what was going on. I also realized in this trip that me speaking here, there's really nothing that I can say that's going to leave a huge mark on you. I think, in the sense that it's not going to transform your life by watching this video. All I can really do is to encourage you to take 5-MeO DMT for yourself one day, to excite you for that, to convince you maybe that it's real. This isn't like marijuana or ecstasy or alcohol. This is an intensely powerful spiritual tool. And if you are interested in enlightenment and God, in ascension, in escaping this wheel of karma and reincarnation and liberation, this is a very powerful technique, a very powerful tool. And I would always, as always, encourage you, don't just go diving into this, especially at high doses. I would encourage years of a solid meditation practice, being able to meditate sober, committing to meditating 95% of your time sober, not on a psychedelic, maybe even 99%. But yeah, words can never really convey much energy to you, I think, as much as I would like. But maybe I can convince someone to actually try it for themselves. And if one person tries it because of what I said, wow, that if you try 5-MeO DMT, it will change your life. So yeah, I guess that's it. And I'll see you in the next video. It has been a few days since I did my last 5-MeO DMT trip, and I'll link to sort of a description of what I experienced down below. And I haven't done another dose since because I feel like I'm really still gaining the benefits of that trip when sober, and that's really what is exciting me about this sacred substance, is that it doesn't just give you some sort of peak or interesting experience. It's really affecting your sober state of consciousness and your ability to make spiritual progress afterwards when sober. So I don't want to rehash what's in the other video. You can maybe watch that if you're curious what I experienced. But just very quickly, I don't think I actually put it in these words in that video. Basically what I was experiencing, this is well known in yoga, in Kriya Yoga, is a Shambhavi experience, where you sort of do something with your eyes and eyebrows, and that creates a link and some sort of a nerve or a nadi, whatever you want to call it. Experientially, definitely it's true, gets connected from this third eye region, going out of the body, that's what it feels like, and it goes all the way back down through the body. So yeah, I explained it in different ways, but that's basically what was happening when I was staring at that dot on the ceiling. But since that experience, and this really excites me, just when I've been sober, completely sober, not on anything, not even coffee or like sugar, I would just be meditating and be having these really interesting Shambhavi experiences still, which is extremely exciting to me because it means that you can now access a new state of consciousness. And it's not some subtle effect, like this is really interesting, powerful. And what the effect feels like is it's like a faster vibration happening in the body and at the third eye. And also just for instance, like one experience that I was having, I sort of find that I need to tilt my head up a bit, and then it literally feels like there's a strand going up into the ceiling. And it can feel like energy is being pulled out of your body, which can feel draining. It's like a little trick to the experience that's happening inside you. You don't want it to draw all the energy out of your body. That feels a bit very spacious. You want to be drawing the energy through your whole body and letting the energy embody you, and then you're connecting to this higher consciousness. So it's sort of merging. You're sort of drawing down some sort of an energy from the bottom, from the top and the bottom, and making it merge in your body so that the energy can animate you. But when in a state like this, I was experiencing the very interesting Om kind of experience, because obviously that's a very famous mantra. But in this case, it was like, imagine if you ever did this as a kid, if you were like in a trolley going over a gravelly road and going, really high pitched. Maybe I'll try and simulate it now with some video editing skills, some amateur skills, what that sounded like, but it was very different than just like a normal Om. And I wasn't making this sound, but this frequency just comes up as you're entering these states. And it's, why would a sound be so profound? But you can really feel that something deep inside of you is shifting into a higher frequency state of functioning. And yeah, it's just exciting to me that this Shambhavi is now so accessible. And it's literally, the benefit you can think of it is, now normal life consciousness is kind of a bit watery, flowy, a bit slow. And when you do this exercise, first of all, you get all kinds of insights, all sorts of visuals in general open up to you. But it's literally like a frequency, a really high-pitched frequency starts here. And then if you take some skill and practice, that can embody your whole body. And that's just a great benefit to have. Who doesn't want to live life at a higher frequency with more awareness, more feeling, more emotion, more happiness? And I must mention that, yeah, there's a lot of just pleasure and bliss associated with that state of consciousness, and it really feels like it's going somewhere. It's not just interesting experiences, it's healing and transforming, even not just growing, not just evolving, complete transformation. It's not, I'm going to admit, of course, it's not as intense as the actual 5-MeO experience, but it does feel like it's raising the ceiling of consciousness. And this does fit with my philosophy of 99% of your meditation should be sober. And I guess the plan now is to keep doing sober meditation until I feel like in my body I can get a calling that there will be a big benefit of taking another dose. But for now, I'm getting a lot of growth and beauty and everything I want from the sober experiences. So I'm not going to be doing 5-MeO immediately. And I think that's the way to go for anyone in general. If you feel like you need to, if you take it and then take a substance, afterwards you really should have some integration to do. If you're not integrating anything, you feel like there's nothing to integrate, then I would reconsider your path, what you're doing, because if you have a profound experience, there's really a lot of information to process. And not just information, it's really the energy in the body. A lot of things get stirred up. And because things get stirred up, that gives you the opportunity to now let that energy flow in higher functioning within the body. And that's something else I just want to mention, is that what else excites me so much about this process isn't that it's like some unique experience to me. This has been very well documented. I've read a lot of similar things by the yogis. They mention a lot of this stuff, and Kriya Yoga especially. It's like textbook exactly what's happening to me. It's not some cool unique thing to me. It's like extremely common. And where this is sort of you're going through stages. Maybe it's not the absolute beginning stage, but it's some like intermediate stage. And where this is leading is so exciting and like the best thing you could possibly imagine. All the things that are described, like infinite bliss, infinite consciousness, infinite creativity, infinite love, immortality. All of these things are so exciting to me. And it seems like the more I do it, the more I'm following the path that I've seen someone else talk about. So I can only assume that they are right about where this leads. And so that's another reason I'm very excited about it. And I think that's about it for today. So if you have any comments, I'd love to talk about it. As always, comment below, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello everyone. So I just quite recently had my first, I think it was about 20 milligrams trip, because this was a lot stronger than my 19 milligram trip. Unfortunately, my milligram scale, I think it's not super that accurate, so there's probably a plus minus up to 2 or 3 milligrams, which isn't ideal. But I'm guessing this is about 20 milligrams. And I want to preface this by saying that, well, first of all, sorry if it's a bit rambly, this is totally off script and sort of soon after the experience, so maybe all the energies are still fresh, which is why I want to make the video now, but also it's not like well constructed into a well-formed idea. And also I want to say that these experiences have been syncing extremely well with my 8 spiritual breaths practice, which I've been doing for a few years now, and just all the meditation I've been doing. And I don't think I would personally be having these wonderful experiences, if such deep healing experiences, if I wasn't doing all these sober practices. But yeah, with that, let me just start with what happened. Basically, I took the dose, and I was expecting it to be a bit mellow because I've done a dose similar to this. And yeah, then at some point it got really strong. And what I had an intention, actually, what I wanted to focus on, and that's sort of, I was noticing a lot of area in my chin area here. I don't know if you can see, but I do have a bit of a chip on one of these teeth. And sometimes I just get some subtle pain from it. It's really not a big deal. We've all had tooth pain. And really, this tooth pain is really interesting because it's almost a jaw pain. It's like at the base of the tooth that the pain feels like. It's not an issue if I'm out and about and just living my life, but sometimes if I meditate and I focus on it, I really notice there's a lot of energy. And it can really vary because it's really sharp, tinging, zinging, white sort of energy. It can be quite pleasant if I go into deep state of consciousness, but sometimes it gets like really overwhelming, the feeling. But anyway, that's sort of what I wanted to put my intention on, because I've felt that a lot when meditating sober with very powerful energies, but it never really went anywhere. It never really healed. And yeah, so as this dose kicked in, at some point, yeah, it got really strong, and I was having a bit of a, well, this was the challenging moment, and I just had to, I went back, I was trying to sit up, but I was like, okay, no, wait, I need to lay down. And I just said, I'm just opening up to love, and I'm just opening up to God. And that was really challenging. And what I sort of realized was happening, this was the real insight of the trip, it was super interesting to me. I could see sort of where this tooth pain was. It was like this massive tangled web of like energy. You know, imagine the most knotted piece of string you've ever seen. That's like elastic and tightly bound, like all around this area of my, that tooth in particular, but the lower jaw here. And what that represented was all of, maybe not all, but at this time it felt like all of the negative things I've been carrying around. It felt extremely gross, all the grossness I've been projecting out onto the world, all the pain, the suffering, fears, disappointments, all these negative things were actually stored here in my body, and it felt like everywhere in my body was so free and fresh, but this energy was like still moving around and emanating out into my life. Super interesting, and I wonder how similar it is for other people. It really felt like this is the mechanism of how the human body works, and it's storing a lot of negative energy in the pain associated with a slightly painful tooth. Super interesting, and as this trip was happening, yeah, I just needed to open up to it, love it, accept it, which is the challenging part. And then at some point I did sort of break through. I did break through, and I just suddenly got this feeling of, oh, it's going to be okay. This is going to be absolutely fine and beautiful. And from then on, I just had all these beautiful insights. It's a bit interesting because it was like I was needing to face all this pain and suffering and disappointment, fear, doubt, whatever, all these negative feelings that was stored here. And I'm curious if through doing this, I'm going to heal this tooth pain completely, because right now, I don't think I worked through all of the energy stored there. I can feel even right now, there's a lot more to work through. But it's exciting because I have access to go back and heal it. And just by doing sober practice, you can just keep working at it, but it's very challenging, and it's hard to see if you're really going anywhere. So I think now to process this afterwards, to integrate this experience, I just need to feel, I can tell already every time I'm doing this, there's a huge ego backlash that comes up in the next day or so. So I just need to work through that. And I suspect there's going to be a lot of this negative energy backlashing. Just process that, notice the energy, try and not let it emanate through my whole body. Love it, accept it. And yeah, just see where it goes. I'm curious to see where that goes. But the main insight to me that was super interesting was how literally the energy is, if you think of a negative energy, let's just say, in this case, because grossness was actually one of the feelings stored here. Grossness, actually, there's no such thing as gross. Nothing is gross. It's a survival instinct that humans and maybe other animals have evolved, and that grossness is stored within us, and we project it out onto the world. But where is this grossness stored? It's usually, people would say, well, it's the brain and memories or whatever. But in this particular experience I had, it seemed that that feeling was actually stored in the pain of a tooth, and that there's all these swirling energies maybe neurons firing, I don't know exactly. Maybe it's in a spiritual dimension, but all this energy swirling around, and that was stored in the tooth, in the jaw area in general. So, yep, I don't want to ramble too much. I think that's nearly it, but I want to say that, again, the 8 spiritual breaths was hugely helpful because, again, I was sort of at the peak of the trip, and as I was coming down, I started to recite these, in this case, the negations of the 8 spiritual breaths, and that really did, again, you can tell it's making some huge energy shifts in the body. So I'm hugely thankful for that practice. And I also realized this was another beautiful thing, that I'm so grateful for the 8 spiritual breaths because of what they're doing in my life. But actually, and this was the insight at the moment, don't judge me too harshly if you're an atheist or a secularist or whatever, but I was seeing that every person's path is different, but God is there perfectly for everyone, giving them exactly what they need. So although I'd really benefit from the 8 spiritual breaths, God is active in all dimensions of life and helping people in the way that they need it right now. So I don't want to just recommend the 8 spiritual breaths to everyone. Check it out if you're drawn to it. Go ahead. I've got no financial affiliation with it, but I'm really benefiting from that. And yeah, I think that's about it. These videos are a bit rambly. Sorry about that. But if you have any interesting comments or thoughts, I'd love to hear about it. I always enjoy talking about these things. And I'll see you in the next video. Hello everyone. So for this video, look, I want to start by just acknowledging generally that I understand this is probably not as interesting a video as a post 5-MeO trip, just talking about the integration. But one of the reasons I really want to make this video topic is because it's really important to do this integration work, and that's sort of why I'm making it as an example. Like, if you do 5-MeO, I so highly encourage that you specifically spend days integrating the experience and feel into your body. Have I been integrating it, or was that just an experience that now hasn't changed my consciousness in some way? Okay, so with that, I'm just going to start by explaining my integration over the past few days, which was interesting to me because basically my trip, you can watch the video if you like, my first 20 milligram trip involved a lot of energy around my tooth pain and around here in the jaw. And basically now I think the tooth pain has actually reduced, but the interesting aspect of it was, as I was meditating, how this energy moved in my body. And basically I didn't do any Kacharya at all, but still the space of Kacharya, which is above the soft palate and more behind the nose, and in this case it was related to the not the Etruscan tubes, but your ears actually come in through tubes. There's a canal that reaches here, and they form a very distinct feature in the upper sinuses, which if you do Kacharya you'll definitely just feel them and see what they look like in a sense with your tongue. And this area did a lot of healing, integration of the nervous system, because there are very sensitive nerves that run all through the area behind your nose, which is very interesting. And it connected in many ways with the tooth pain. And what this involved was a lot of judgments and subtle facial expressions being relaxed, which at times felt incredibly relaxing. I like to think of it because it really feels like that. Like God massaging you, because it's like a massage happening where a human could never reach, behind your nose. But it really feels like that deep relaxation quality when you get a massage, like this deep letting go. And it involved a lot of, I noticed, like I said, slight judgment. So in my meditation experience, how I would be exploring that is I would think of something that, just for instance, I'll take an example that did not happen. A dog barking. Yeah, it's like subtly annoying, but you can feel like actually when the dog barks and it annoys you, there's like a tension, there's something happening, some energy movement in this area behind the nose. And it also was relating to the tooth pain, but my control that I had was up behind the nose. And then you would just sort of release into it, and just by seeing it, allowing consciousness to shine into that area of the body, it would release. And at times it would come in waves. The waves of relaxation would come, and then you just observe what's happening. And then the relaxation comes, and then you observe what's happening. And this cycle, it really feels like a lot of healing is happening. And sort of the vibe that I had after the first 5-MeO trip and during the trip of all this negativity I've been carrying around, really it does seem to like been washed away, and I don't see the world in the same way, quite literally, which is very interesting. And this is like a very body type of consciousness, a body type of intelligence that seemed to have dropped a lot of its negative energy. And also it's interesting because I've been meaning to get on a personal note, but I'm not going to reveal too much, of course. I've been meaning to have some conversations with people, but that are difficult conversations to have. So I was sort of just feeling into the energy. There's been no rush. But after these healing experiences happening, I found myself naturally opening up to have somewhat difficult conversations with people. And they went absolutely great because as I was doing it as well, I was feeling into it. If you sort of confront someone on any topic, you naturally, even if you're trying not to, you have a judgment of them. Let's say just for example, that someone's not cleaning the kitchen after they use it. You know, you could say, please clean it, but then subtly within you, you sort of have like a judgment of them, like, what's this person doing, not cleaning up after themselves? But of course, normally I would just like hide that slight judgment, or maybe I wouldn't even really be conscious of it. But now I could feel that sort of sensation coming up behind my nose, and then you drop it as it's arising. And it's a really beautiful experience, and the conversations have been absolutely great, absolutely fantastic. And it was a very heart-opening experience. Sorry to be so vague, but I don't want to get into my personal life too much. Also, as part of the integration, I did find it connected, which is very unexpected. It's not something you or I would guess. It's not something I would guess anyway. This Kacharya space and the tooth pain space connected with the Swadhisthana, which in this case had like this very joyous energy of life as I experienced it can be so much better on a totally new level, that greater things that I can't even imagine are to come. That was sort of emanating from the Swadhisthana, connecting with the Kacharya space and allowing a lot of this pain to drop at my lower tooth and jaw pain. There is still some feeling here at the jaw, at my chipped tooth, and I'm very interested to see where this goes, especially in my next 5-MeO trip. I'm just gonna, when I do it, open up to the experience and open up to God and love as per usual. But maybe it won't be about that at all. I'm curious to see if it is. It does feel to me like integration definitely happened, like a lot of karma was dropped over this time period, just these few days. And it definitely feels just like intuitively, if I was to say the amount of energy stuck there below at the bottom of my tooth. Watch my previous video post-trip to get more information on that. Maybe this will make more sense. But it feels like maybe it's at 40% of what it was, which feels really nice. I feel really light. Even when I'm tired now, in a sense, my body feels tired, but my mind is so clear. And I think it's because of all this energy that I've been carrying has been released. So yeah, I'm very interested in what happens next. And if you do try 5-MeO, I highly encourage spending many hours meditating and integrating it afterwards, because you could access all kinds of very interesting healing energies. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is to drop all this loathsome karma that we have so that we can be free in mind, body, and spirit and emotion. That's really the goal for me. So it doesn't just help to have a mind-blowing experience. We want to really integrate what happens. to us. Okay, that's it for me for today, and I'll see you next time. I have just done a 15 milligrams trip of 5-MeO DMT, and there is so much to cover. I don't really know if I can mention everything. Let's see what I can recollect and remember, because, wow, so much happened. I think the first point of interest for me is that I did 15 milligrams, and wow, it was way more powerful than like a plus 20 milligram dose, which I think is attributable to the fact that I have been meditating a lot. I've been doing all kinds of yogic techniques like Shambhavi, and yeah, I've been meditating 5+ hours every day sober. I haven't done a trip in like a week. And yes, it was so insanely powerful. 15 milligrams. I'm scaling down my doses and they're getting stronger. So I think I should mention that through the week, especially the past day, yesterday especially, I was focusing, there was a lot of energy in my throat. And I haven't like made a video for a while because I've been getting this feeling of like, what's the point, like of expressing myself, etc., etc. And during this trip, I really came face to face with, I can't really say all the issues I was struggling. It's hard to put into words. And yeah, it reminds me of, I really have no idea what this means. I just heard it once, but it reminds me of, in the Jewish tradition, they call the throat area in their, I forget what it's called, their geometric system, the art, which is representative of the throat. And that completely, what it felt like during the trip was, during yesterday especially, I was wrestling with this energy, opening up, trying to love it, etc. But it felt like it was like a snake, like an anaconda constricting itself around all kinds of grooves, and in all the nooks and crannies it's just hanging on. And this 5-MeO trip gave me the blowing force to just totally let everything go out, blow that snake apart, as it were. And like the space that opens up is incredible, incredible, incredible. And I'm an engineer. I'm a very rational person as well. So I'll just say what I experienced. I'm not making like any absolute claims, but it really felt like a knife cutting through my perception and reaching some depth of consciousness where it was revealed that like everything we're imagining it can all be blown apart, and that our true depths of our what we are is totally like, I haven't finished, I don't know what it is, but it's totally not this what we're looking at. Something so much greater and deeper, and what we are is very not materialistic, and that in fact all of this physical world is maybe an illusion. But the counter argument to that would be that, yeah, okay, I've experienced that, but then you come back to the world and it's exactly like you remember it. But then again, I didn't finish the experience, and I'm excited to see where that goes. Also, there's some interesting things that happened. Just for one, I saw someone's Facebook post, which was basically like pro-creationist, and I engaged with it a little bit, making that point that basically just saying that probably the Earth is millions or billions of years old, and so is the universe, and evolution is true. But that doesn't undermine that God could still exist, and why do we have this attachment to like a young creationist Earth, is what I said. And this person I was engaging with is, you could say, very spiritual, very interesting person, definitely an alternative person. But I just got this feeling that the engagement, what was really going on there is, what the person is trying to do, it's like she's pointing out, why do we have this attachment to a billion-year-old Earth? And that by really confronting what you really believe to be true, like that this physical world exists you can really cut through all of that and reach like this brand new space. At least that's what was being revealed to me, but then again, I would say that the attachment to a 6,000-year-old Earth is just as bad. The point is that when we really confront what we believe to be like true about this world, that things are made of molecules or whatever, that's the sort of open-mindedness that is required, and that 5-MeO gives you to like really see what else is possible. Also, the depth, of course, I think this is quite commonly known. The point of meditation, one point, is to love all parts of yourself, and that helps the healing process. But I was incredibly surprised, as I have been in the past, how deep that process of self-love goes. And I was confronted, but in a good way, with all the negative, not all, a lot of the negative aspects of myself. Very interesting, tantric in nature, in the sense that it was like very animalistic in nature, not sexual. But for instance, my cheek hair was coming up as like a point of consciousness that I was opening up to. And this is something you hear in spiritual circles, in Christianity especially. Really loving every pore of your hairs where they're coming out. Because where your hairs are coming out of your skin, that's like a very animalistic energy, very earthy energy, and really being surprised how deep that biological network of your body goes, and then how deeply you can love that. Also, another very interesting point that interesting narrative that happened in my head was being astounded at the depth and power of some of these biblical stories, or just one in particular, the story of Abraham and Joseph, his son, which is a very interesting story. I won't say the whole story here. If you just read it or just learn it as a kid, it's not very powerful. But then what you realize is, or what I was realizing is, what the story is, it's like a package that's being put together. But the real value, the spiritual value, is that package can unravel and like explode, and that just gives you all of these insights. So that's what a biblical story is meant to be, or this story at least, that's what it seemed to be to me. It's like an energy stored up in a story, and as that story blows up and opens, as you have these spiritual awakenings, the story blows up and you get all these realizations, and man, is it exciting. I think I'm gonna leave it there. I can't really explain how powerful that was, but from a curiosity point of view, I find it really interesting how lowering the dose to 15 milligrams, which if you read online is not a big dose, how intensely powerful that was. That's exciting, because my goal is to reach these states of consciousness sober eventually, and I think that is possible. I was noticing as well, the trip would sort of be ending, but then I could try a yogic technique, and then the trip would start up again. You would go up to that space again. For instance, with Shambhavi, which is the yogic technique, you can read about that in Kriya Yoga. So that was intensely helpful. I also got the idea that like as you're having these experiences, my eyes open up and realize like, oh, this is what the yogis were talking about. Oh, this is what the writers of the Bible were experiencing. But I have no idea how you would get there sober, like with no help. It's a little theory of mine at the moment now, that if that a lot of these sages and saints used some sort of assistance, and maybe in some really powerful schools of yoga, I would not be surprised, let's say, if they have like some sort of initiation and trial period and you need to show your dedication. But at some point, I would not be surprised if they start giving you their version of psychedelics, because these things are just so powerful. It's like I said at the start, I could be sitting a whole day meditating on some energy in my throat, and it's kind of painful. I feel like I'm not really getting anywhere because it's like wrestling a snake that's just wrapped around a tree. But this just blows the snake off the tree, and wow, you make so much progress. Not that you can just take a massive dose of 5-MeO and then just achieve all the spiritual results that you want. I think you need to do lots of meditation, and I'm lucky enough to be able to do 5+ hours of meditation every day. So that really definitely paid off. And the only tricky thing is, at the moment, you have this experience and then you sort of come back. It's sort of, it's fine. I guess it'll just come with time. Like for instance, shooting this video, is that in itself is sort of a trapping, because, you know, the thought like when you're coming down, like, wow, that was really interesting. I'd like to share that on video. Is that in itself, that's sort of bringing you back to this dimension? If you have a thought like that, that's going to bring you back. So maybe it's best to just not make any videos, or just not think anything, not engaging with the world on some level brings you back. So it's very interesting. There's many questions like, what are other people? Where are other people at in their spirituality? Or where is their level of perception at? Maybe they're not like enlightened, but I became very open-minded to like where people are at. They might be experiencing the world totally differently than I am, especially women. I think I was having these insights how a particular woman in my life, or women in my life, are experiencing the world because of what they said. You know, you have a conversation, but then on some level you realize like, oh, like they're really seeing the world differently than you are. And in a sense, I think they are enlightened, but maybe not in all senses. But who knows? That's all open questions. So I guess the takeaway is, if you're doing 5-MeO, I would suggest taking breaks, integrating it, and that don't be surprised that when you lower the dose, your experiences get stronger, which is fantastic news. So yeah, that's it. I wanted to make a bit of a impromptu video again, and that's after my 16 milligram 5-MeO DMT trip. And this time it was very, very different. Again, a pretty low dose, 16 milligrams. But wow, before my trips were very centered above my chest, and this time that's what I was meditating on this morning for multiple hours. I'm very thankful that I have the opportunity to do that in my stomach. And then during the trip, wow, there was a very Kundalini-based focused trip. That's super right at the base of my spine where the Muladhara is meant to be, was opening up, and this immense heat was coming up. It was like something from a movie, bubbling heat coming up from the surface of the core of the earth, to be metaphorical and poetic. All this heat, it felt like the most immense power that could ever be accessed. And at that point I was really thinking, like, should I really be recommending this substance? Because I was really feeling, and I think I still do feel this way, if you're going to be doing any sort of Kundalini type activity, I've heard this in the past and I totally agree with it after this experience, you really do need a guru, a guide of some sort. And by that I mean, on the spiritual dimension, it's important to have accessed this guru energy, this guru Shetram energy field of guidance, because otherwise it's just so powerful that you could, I don't know what could happen, but I just get the strong intuition that it is very important to have a guide when you're doing these Kundalini, having these experiences. And so much happened again during this trip, but the interesting things to mention is that for once, usually I did the trip and then right afterwards I made a little video because it's sort of fun to express myself. But this time it was so deep and jarring for my nervous system. I actually needed to lay down and take a pretty long nap because it was so powerful. Even a couple of hours afterwards, I was still there getting very strong sensations at the base of my spine. And definitely I should take quite a few days, a week, who knows, maybe a few weeks to integrate this experience because, wow, it was so powerful. also, the main thing that definitely sticks with me is this phrase that I heard a yogi say once, which is translated, "Deep is the flow of karma." And wow, that was being shown to me to be so true. Wow, yeah, deep, deep, deep is the flow of karma. Because it's like our perceptual awareness here is on a surface level. And then there's deeper layers. When I'm just in normal sober meditation, I can have a still state of mind, and that feels like it's dropping quite deeply. And it's like all of this is happening sort of in my chest, my head, my face, my stomach. But then here at the base of the spine, it's like you can hit rock bottom, go deeper than the earth, dig a hole as such. And that's where like your karma lies. And consciousness doesn't usually go there. And it's very different because it's not cool, calm, and relaxing like you're in outer space. You know, some other meditation experiences. Even before my previous trips, it's like your karma is clearing in your throat. That's what happened on my last trip. And what's being revealed is like this space-like conscious energy. But this was not like that at all. This was like deep, deep, deep magma of the earth opening up. And I could really feel, but not in full clarity, but really feel how deep is the flow of karma and all my little issues of life, usually interpersonal relationships. It just goes to show that, I'm sort of seeing them from this perspective, but the real deep karma, the real core of the issue goes extremely, extremely deep. And the trick is to let go and let the karma get burnt. And really, I'm excited to reach these states of consciousness sober. Then I feel like you can really burn away the karma and become free from your many, many past lives, if those things are true. But during the trip, that was all extremely apparent to me. But I'm a very rational, grounded person. I try to be, so I'm not making any absolute claims. But during the trip, these things are like so obvious. I'm not going to like second guess myself during the trip. And the other thing that it was really interesting. At the start, I thought like, wow, I should like just get rid of this YouTube channel because really only proper enlightened Kundalini yoga, Kriya yoga masters should be talking about these things. And I am definitely not going to be willy-nilly recommending people try 5-MeO DMT and rushing into experiences. And I think I'm going to take a very different recommendation approach in the future. So there's a lot of benefits that you can have from 5-MeO DMT, but I can only recommend from my experiences that you need years of preparation work. You need to have access to a guru. If you're a guru, I don't mean a person. I mean this guidance field of consciousness in order to be accessing these Kundalini energies because they are so powerful. So I guess I'm going to title this video something like should you be accessing Kundalini through 5-MeO DMT without a guru? And my answer to that is definitely not. Go find a guru. It might take you some time, might take you a day, but really that's very important.